Thank you for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I am one of your hosts, Andy Harrison, and with me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hello.
Every week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us, and this week, we're taking a look at Ghostbusters 2.
Ghostbusters 2 takes us to a few years after the original, where they've gone out of business, our four favourite ghostbusting gaffers. And unfortunately, they've got out of business, they're retired. So they're just getting through the ways, and they've got their own things doing, whether it's being on TV or whether it's just a small little off-the-side business. And then, lo and behold, the ghosts come back. Ghostbusters 2 is an interesting one, because whereas it's been a while since I've watched this, I've seen the first one as a kid a few more times. It's the one I always remember, the Michelin Man. Stay Puft. Yeah, I always get them mixed up with Michelin Man and Stay Puft is like very similar. The first one is much better. I just didn't get the same amount of energy and pacing and kind of enthusiasm for the second one. Not really necessarily the acting, but more so like the story and the way it progressed forward. It's stuff like the court case that they have absolutely slows the pace of the film down. It's a bit unfortunate. It feels like the whole film was almost like to the audience, us ourselves, saying, "Oh, you want Ghostbusters 2 to happen," and I don't know if I did.
Like Ghostbusters 1, I think last week I described it as being lightning in a bottle. It's a very special film. Everything just comes together quite succinctly. It's got a lot of character to it, a lot of charm, a lot of personality to it, very sharp, intelligent writing. And Ghostbusters 2 is the same film again, but worse.
No, but that's it.
Its plotting is beat for beat the exact same film. We follow the same story structure of the guys now going back into business. The city being under threat from something that they don't realize is there at first, slowly builds to a quite a large, outlandish, otherworldly figure trying to take over a chunk of the world or New York or something. Along the way, you've got the exact same supporting cast, with the exception of Walter Peck, who gets swapped out. Rick Moranis, sort of chasing a girl around. He gets involved with Annie Potts.
Go on, sorry.
Which, for me, is a shame, because she had that wonderful little subtle sort of background story going on with Egon in the first film. And even a lot of the jokes try to land in a very similar way. But the writing is not as sharp. It's not as clever as it was in the first one.
And it's one of the issues I have Sigourney Weaver's character. I mean, you've got a powerhouse like Sigourney Weaver, as Dana. She's just there to be a sex icon. She's just there to be the femme fatale. She's there for Bill Murray's kind of catch and, gift at the end of it. The film revolves around her kid and everything. And it's the same. It's the issue I had with the first one. I know we didn't really go on about it much, but it would have been nice for her role to have more to it, where in fact it's not really anything apart from just Bill Murray's objective desire.
Yeah, and my problem with Bill Murray for this film is that the majority of his screen time becomes dedicated to showing people, oh look, Bill Murray's good with babies. Like he loses all of the range that he was able to have in that first film. He's still snarky. He's overly snarky in this.
Well, this is it. But I actually wrote this down. I said I did find myself not liking Venkman. He's not only snarky, but he's incredibly obnoxious to the point where he's not contribution. Like he has no team contribution at all.
So that's what I find.
It annoyed me.
This is where they crossed the line with Venkman, is that in the first film, he was very much like snarky, but he's going along and helping when he needed to. He was taking care, and a lot of times they would sort of step back when it was time for some sort of social interaction. When it was dealing with people, dealing with business elements. That's where Venkman would sort of take over. In Ghostbusters 2, there's literally like that scene towards the end where he's going out on the date with Dana, and they'll turn up and they're like,
"Do you want to go down to the sewers?
We found the slime. We're going down there now. We need your help." And he totally blows them off, and you're like, "Hang on, man! Like,"
and he goes,
you're supposed to be friends with these guys. Go help them out."
There are two scenes that arguably made me laugh out more than the previous film. And one was just after the court scene where he goes, Do, Re, Egon. I was like, I did not expect that.
That's fantastic.
Howling. And then, whilst I feel like Rick Moranis had a lesser role in this film, like in the first one, he was brilliant. He was just, and this, and then that, and he was just a constant. The fact that I found out that was all improvised was brilliant. But this one I felt was quite a bit less. However, there was one. I can't remember what she says to him. She goes, "Oh, well played. That was really good." And he goes, "Thanks. I practiced on my hamster." And I was crying with laughter.
Do you know the story of the script a little bit?
No, I don't. Again, this is history that I'm learning from Ghostbusters.
So Ghostbusters comes out 1984. This is 1989. That's a 5-year gap. And at the time, that was pretty sizable. You wouldn't really leave 5 years in between sequels. And a lot of it's because they were struggling for ideas. At the time, in the middle of that gap,
it shows.
They also developed the real Ghostbusters cartoon, the TV show.
Great show, yeah.
A lot of that had sort of an impact on Ghostbusters 2 in some capacity. Ghostbusters had sort of exploded into this multimedia icon. Something that I don't think they ever really expected when they made that first film. And supposedly, this is just me taking words from Bill Murray, but he has said that when they turned up to shoot Ghostbusters 2, he was under the assumption, and I think apparently a lot of the other cast were under the assumption, they were making a completely different script. They had all signed on for a particular draft of this script. And when they turned up to shoot, it turns out they were shooting something completely different. But they found themselves obviously on set, in production. So you've got to make something, and you've got to make the best of what you've got. I think a lot of the cast and a lot of the crew have been quite vocal about this film not being anywhere near as good as that first film. But Bill Murray in particular has been quite hard on it. He sort of said, it's disappointing. Doesn't live up to the legacy of what Ghostbusters was. I find it really interesting that this, for a long time, for many, many years, people would refer to this as the bad Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters 1, great, and then there's the disappointing sequel. That's probably why we never got Ghostbusters 3. More recently, people are starting to talk a little bit more favourably about Ghostbusters 2. And I don't think it's because people are seeing something that they didn't realise was in that second film. I think people are looking at it favourably because the more recent Ghostbusters, 2016, I haven't seen Afterlife yet, is so disastrously bad that in comparison, this looks pretty good. We've basically done the Star Wars treatment again, where we've managed to make such horrifically bad sequels that the old bad films are looking pretty decent. This is Return of the Jedi.
Which is amazing. I agree. And you mentioned something back there about the Ghostbusters cartoon, which is something I wanted to mention last week. That was my most memorable experience of Ghostbusters that I completely forgot about. Even the action figures and everything. When we were younger, we had a few of them, if I recall. And
the fact that Slimer is hanging out at the firehouse, that's taken from the real Ghostbusters cartoon, because obviously he was part of the crew. But they don't explain
really into it though.
No,
yeah, exactly. No, but that's it.
Annie Potts, her character gets reworked based on her character in the real Ghostbusters cartoon.
I think that's the issue. I think it's just a bit too. What did I used a word to describe it? It was mismatched, a bit too mismatched, and a bit too kind of shit's put together, but not in the right way. And it feels like, as I said, they're trying to sell themselves as Ghostbusters to the community of New York. The crew of Ghostbusters and the writers and the director Reitman are trying to sell themselves as we need a second Ghostbusters. I don't think we did.
No, we didn't. I think Ghostbusters was fantastic on its own. I think it was a really tightly constructed film, but still had that loose character about it. It felt strangely effortless, whereas Ghostbusters 2 feels really full of effort in the wrong place.
Yeah, I completely agree.
One little thing we've got to mention, there is no Ghostbusters 3. We won't be doing Ghostbusters 3. We're not doing Ghostbusters 2016 next week, but there was kind of an unofficial Ghostbusters 3. Do you know about what that is?
I know it's got Finn from Stranger Things in.
No, so there is a Ghostbusters 3 kind of in video game form.
Oh,
so
shit.
This is on PS3, Xbox 360. I think it was re-released recently. But the whole crew actually came back and reprised their roles for obviously just in terms of voice acting. But you play a new Ghostbuster who's going out on an adventure alongside the whole crew, and actually, it's not half bad.
There we go. That's how you do it. You go from a film to a cartoon to a bloody well game, and there are your sequels. Not a film called Ghostbusters 2. That has that cringy moment where they're singing to their own song. Ugh.
Oh man, I don't even get me started. The music on this is so disappointing as well. So there is Ghostbusters 2. You can let us know in the comments below what you thought of Ghostbusters 2. If this still holds up for you, let us know why you think it's wonderful down there. So Andy and I will be back once again next week, where for us, it's time to take a look at The Rider.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Until then, get watching.